Salman Khurshid, Congress Member of Parliament and Senior Advocate. He will be joined by Tarun Nangia, Editor of Legally Speaking, on the stage in just a short while from now. They will be discussing the Constitution and the Waqf. Tarun, I request you to take your place on stage. Let's please welcome Mr. Salman Khurshid with a huge round of applause. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us at the third Law and Constitution Dialogue. Tarun, over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is indeed a great pleasure to have Mr. Salman Khurshid today at this gathering. I've always regarded him as one of the most sane voices we have in this country, speaks in a very measured manner. He needs no introduction really, but we have to formally give one. Of course, one of the most well-regarded senior advocates in this country, one of the most well-known external affairs minister that he served, also as law minister, and of course his contribution to politics in this country in the past many decades can't be denied. And most recently, of course, he's now helming the India Islamic Cultural Center. That is, you've taken charge there also. So, a person whose imprint on social life in India can't be ignored, and we are happy to have him on two very important topics. He'll be speaking on the Waqf Bill, which has been referred to the JPC, also on the Places of Worship Act, given what happened recently in the Supreme Court. So, you know, people want to listen to you in depth, your opinions. So, as an introductory comment on Waqf, can you give me a 5-7 minute answer explaining the rationale behind the position you've taken?
It's some news to me when you say that people want to listen to anybody in some depth and at some length. I thought we were living in an impatient world. Come on, give me in how many words do you have in a Twitter, Twitter and X now? But anyway, if you think that that's important, I'll try and put it across to you. As a prelude to it, as a caveat, let me just say this, that many things associated with religion, it may be true across the board to many religions, including the religion of our majority compatriots in this country, because there are so many segments and there are so many denominations that would have a different approach to religion. But be that as it may, knowledge about other people's religion seems to be very scarce as of now. My understanding is that in the past we knew a lot more about each other than we seem to know now. Although with modern technology and modern information, we should be much better informed, but we've chosen not to be that well informed. So coming to Waqf, there is a great deal of misunderstanding and misinterpretation of what Waqf is. It could be treated as a religious institution. It can be treated as a social institution. It can be treated as an economic institution, depending on how you want to approach it. Now, there are constitutional provisions like Article 26 that may protect an institution like Waqf, etc., etc. But without going into that, let me just say this, that Waqf has something to do with social organization of society. It's in some ways something like a safety net in society for people who are obviously indigent, people who cannot afford to look after themselves. But one peculiar aspect of Waqf is, and I think this is in contrast with Hindu religion. Hindu religion, the looking after your parents is taken very significantly, and in fact we have this Pitru Paksh, that even after your parents depart and they leave you, that every year what you have to do is to worship their memory and do something in acknowledging and respecting their memory, which is perhaps feed how many Brahmins and feed how many hungry people and so on. Here in Islam, traditionally, looking after your own family, and when I say family, it can be misunderstood, looking after your own progeny, your own children, is also treated as a charitable act. And therefore, the most controversial part of the present suggested legislation, the bill, is the removal of that provision, which is Waqf al-Awlad, to an extent, not entirely, but to an extent, saying that by declaring a Waqf al-Awlad, you must not meddle with or interfere with rights of inheritance, particularly of girl child, etc. Maybe a good thought, etc., but it's something that is built into the very concept of Waqf al-Awlad. But that's one issue. The larger issue is what has been attempted to be removed is something called Waqf by user. There is a concept in law, as we all know very well, and this concept was discussed at some length by the judgment in Ayodhya, which is the concept of a lost grant. This is known to common law from ancient times, that not always property being utilized in a particular manner can be pinpointed to a document or a deed. And if that's not possible, but from extraneous evidence it's possible to show that it's assumed by people to be dedicated for a particular purpose, that it is actually to be treated as a lost grant. So what happens with Waqf is that a lot of Waqfs don't actually have the paperwork available after hundreds of years, and because they've been continued to be used as a Waqf, etc., so they are treated as a Waqf. Now this is being questioned as far as the new legislation is concerned. So treated as a religious institution or treated as a socio-religious institution, but it's part of society as a whole, just as I believe, at least up to now, just as the joint Hindu family, the HUF is part of the nature of Hindu society. You may like it, you may not like it, you may think it's discriminatory, you may think that this is unfair, this is an unfair advantage, etc. But the fact remains that this is integral and intrinsic to Hindu society as we know it traditionally. Similarly, Waqfs are also part of Islamic society as we know it traditionally. May have changed now. I have no idea and no data about how many Waqfs are created in modern times. There are figures available about how many Waqfs there are in the country, 8 lakh Waqfs, etc., 2 lakhs in Uttar Pradesh, which are Waqf by user and so on and so forth. But we have no data which shows that in the last 50 years how many Waqfs have been created. Because there's a competing law between Waqfs and trusts. You can have a trust, you can have a Waqf. Under Waqf, you have to go through the Waqf law, the Waqf Act. Under the trust, you have to go through the Trust Act, etc. And people would probably choose trust for easier handling than they would Waqf, even if they belong to families, they can do so. So basically, it's a part of the structured economic structure of Islamic society or Muslim society, if you like, just as many similar attributes are part of the Hindu society. So, and I think that you have to ask yourself, have we come to a point where this should be changed, and can it be changed? That's all.
Since this is now going on news channels, what you speak, and this would be seen in posterity, I would want to know a couple of observations from you on the authority now given to district collectors under the new Waqf amendment. There is this issue of auditing by comptroller, auditor general. What do you feel? What is the response on these, in a sense, provisions made in the bill? Any inputs that you have given on this?
Well, we've given inputs because there have been many organizations that have made their presentations before the Joint Parliamentary Committee. And the Joint Parliamentary Committee is still examining many of these. So the basic structure of Waqf is something that people are more interested in. The peripheries are not that important. There is regulation. The regulation has been there, and the regulation can be there. There is no problem. Constitutionally, there is no problem. Politically, you may have to choose, is this regulation advisable? Is this regulation popular? Is this regulation likely to meet resistance? And is that resistance something that we should overcome? You can take a political call on that. But the core issue of who is to decide whether there is a waqf, in the traditional law as it existed right now, or still does exist, the decision is taken by a Waqf board which has, broadly speaking, a democratic structure. The decision is taken by the Waqf board. It is then re-examined by a tribunal if somebody has an issue with it. It goes to the tribunal. After the tribunal, there can be a revision. I don't know why people think that the tribunal's word is final. It's very important because there are inputs in the tribunal that are significant. But finally, it's to be decided by the High Court. It goes in revision.
Now, two questions back to back I want to ask you. One is representation of Muslim women, as the bill requires at least 2 Muslim women on the boards. Secondly, a broader question, if you can answer. Professor Zamiruddin Shah, General Zamiruddin Shah once said that this society is like a salad, where distinct people with distinct identities stay together. And in the same prospect, people who oppose this bill have said there has been lack of consultation. If you could explain what that means, lack of consultation, who should have been consulted, which all people, and some inputs on that if you can share.
Well, very quickly, as far as women are concerned, I can't understand why anyone would have a problem with women being involved. I think if you look at Islamic history carefully, you would find that right at the beginning in Islam, women had a very important role in commerce, in decision making, in what happened in the home, in the family, etc. Our Prophet of Islam did not propose marriage to his first wife. His first wife proposed marriage to him because she trusted him for his honesty and for his integrity and so on and so forth. So it's only without casting aspersions on anyone, it's modern society has developed in subcontinent where women have been considered to be outside the purview of decision making, and therefore they may have been kept out of the structure as well. But there is absolutely nothing objectionable. It's, I think, very.
And the second question, consultation.
Consultations are going on. So I think for people to say we haven't been consulted may be premature because consultations.
In 30 seconds, one last question before we end. The bill proposes replacing the election of Waqf board members with government nominations. What is your view on the same? And
I certainly think that there are difficulties, and I've seen it from my own side. I've seen that if there are not enough MPs in the House or MLAs in the House who can be elected to be part of the Waqf board, what do you do? That is a problem. But I think there's a larger problem with Indian society. But replacing elected persons by nominated persons, and that too nominated by the government, I mean, unless you have a procedure in which the nominations are done by the manner in which nominations are done by for high constitutional office, where there's a leader of opposition, there is somebody representing the opposition, etc., then there might be something said. But simply nominating and government having the power to nominate in place of elected persons, I think would just be replacing democracy with autocracy.
Thank you so much for sharing your free and frank views on this subject. Always, like you do in a measured manner, you raise some aspects, you raise your objections on some aspects. Of course, the discussions are going on, and I think we will speak to you more on this and other platforms, but appreciate that you would find time to join us on this very important issue concerning a large population in India. Thank you so
very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Khurshid, for joining us. Thank you so